we should be live here in 2 seconds.
All right. So welcome everyone to the North Orange County Community College District Board of Trustees meeting on September 28th, 2021. I'd like to begin by having our student Benjamin Ivan Figueroa lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. We're very pleased to have you here with us tonight. I just want to give you a little background about him. Very few students have started and completed the NOCE High School Diploma Program as fast as Benjamin Evan Figueroa has. During this remote period of learning without physically having the opportunity to engage and learn from instructors, Benjamin persevered. Despite the pandemic, Benjamin was able to complete 160 credits remotely. Thanks to his hard work and dedication, Benjamin has now successfully transferred to Cypress College this fall, where he is enrolled in nursing classes for free through the North Orange County Promise. Benjamin credits his success to the wonderful staff at NOCE, saying, "I am very grateful to be a student in NOCE for my high school diploma. Without you, the NOCE family, I would never have achieved my high school diploma and gone on to college. I hope more adult students yearn for the same and finish their studies." So Benjamin, with a very warm welcome, we're going to ask you to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Benjamin. We like to ask students to give us a little summary or a little definition of what democracy means to you.
Dear Board of Trustees, for me, democracy means that the people of the United States have the power to express themselves. As a resident of the United States, I am able to exercise control over my government. As for the government, they should provide equality and freedom for their nation. Both people and government should be able to satisfy their needs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you so much for joining us. And we wish you all the best of luck in your career as a nursing student. You are more than welcome to stay and watch the meeting, or if you are busy with studies or something, you are excused if you'd like. But thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next up is trustee roll call. Alba?
Trustee Bent?
Here.
Trustee Blount?
Here.
Trustee Brown?
Here.
Trustee Dungy?
Here.
Trustee Lopez?
Here.
Trustee Rodarte?
Here.
Trustee Rosales?
Here.
Student Trustee Lacourt?
Here.
And Student Trustee Pandian.
Here.
Good. Everyone's here. At this time, we will entertain any comments from members of the audience. Alba, do we have any comments?
We received one.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Scott Malloy. My name is Scott Malloy, and I'm a faculty member of the Math Department at Fullerton College. I urged the Board of Trustees to rescind its unconstitutional, illegal, and unethical vaccine mandate. Earlier this month, an international alliance of physicians and medical scientists met in Rome, Italy, and convened a global COVID summit. Among these scientists was Dr. Robert Malone, the architect of the mRNA vaccine platform. These professionals drafted a declaration condemning the current global strategy to treat COVID. As of this morning, over 5,200 doctors and scientists have signed this Rome Declaration. I will quote from this declaration. "We, the physicians of the world, united and loyal to the Hippocratic Oath, recognizing the profession of medicine as we know it is at a crossroad are compelled to declare the following. Whereas there is an unprecedented assault on our ability to care for our patients, whereas public policymakers have chosen to force a one-size-fits-all treatment strategy resulting in needless illness and death, rather than upholding fundamental concepts of the individualized personal approach to patient care, which is proven to be safe and more effective. Whereas thousands of physicians are being prevented from providing treatment to their patients as a result of barriers put up by pharmacists, hospitals, and public health agencies, rendering the vast majority of healthcare providers helpless to protect their patients in the face of disease. Physicians are now advising their patients to simply go home, allowing the virus to replicate and return when their disease worsens, resulting in hundreds of thousands of unnecessary patient deaths due to failure to treat. Whereas this is not medicine, this is not care, these policies may actually constitute crimes against humanity. Now, therefore, it is real that the political intrusion into the practice of medicine and the physician-patient relationship must end. Resolve that we invite patients who believe in the importance of the physician-patient relationship and the ability to be active participants in their care to demand access to science-based medical care. You will find the entire text of this declaration and a partial list of its signatories at doctorsandscientistsdeclaration.org. I call on the Board of Trustees to read this declaration and its political intrusion into the practice of medicine and rescind the vaccine mandate. That's the conclusion of the comment.
Thank you. All right, and are there any others? It's just the one?
Correct, just the one.
Okay, all right, thank you. We'll move now to item 1D, which is consideration of non-personal block vote items in section 3. I want to note that items 3C, D, and E are already not on the consent calendar. So it's really just items A, B, and F that we are approving if the board wishes. Does anyone want to pull either item A, B, or F? And if not, do I have a motion?
So moved. Oh, I'll second.
It's moved by Trustee Brown, seconded by Trustee Rodarte. Can we get a vote, please? Alba?
Trustee Bennett,
Aye.
Trustee Brown,
Aye.
Trustee Brown,
Aye.
Trustee Dungy,
Yes.
Trustee Lopez,
Aye.
Trustee Rodarte,
Yes.
Trustee Rosales,
Aye.
Trustee Laporte,
Yes.
Student Trustee Pandian.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion carries. We'll now move to item 1E, which is consideration of block vote items indicated in section 4. So these are items A through F. And the initial handout that some of us got, F was not listed, but there is an item F. So it's items A through F. Does anyone wish to pull any items?
Item 4F, please.
Okay. All right. Any other items? If not, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Rodarte. Do I have a second?
I'll second. Rosales.
Seconded by Rosales. Can we get a board roll call vote?
Trustee Bennett,
Aye.
Trustee Blount,
Aye.
Trustee Brown,
Aye.
I think that was a yes from Trustee Brown. but I'm
Aye,
not
yeah.
Sure, yes, I heard it. Thank you. Trustee Dungy,
Yes.
Trustee Lopez,
Aye.
Trustee Rodarte,
Yes.
Trustee Rosales.
Aye.
All right, good. Motion carries. I will now move to item 1F, which is the Chancellor's report. Chancellor Williams?
I got to do the unmute. Yeah, no report this evening. You'll hear from me on section 3 items and then maybe on section F as well.
Okay, good. So now we'll do comments from Chancellor's staff and members of the public. I move to I need to get my list. Cashew, do you have any comments?
No, the only comment I would have had would have been on the items in section 3. Fred's going to cover those, and so I have no other report.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chancellor Irma Ramos.
Perfect. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I do have a report. So let me just lower my hand. Okay, so I participated in the Harvard Negotiation and Leadership Conference via Zoom on September 20th through the 22nd. There were approximately 70 people attending this conference from around the country and the world. Each session was led by a Harvard faculty member. This program was comprehensive and allowed me to hear different perspectives. This program focused on leadership, building teams, and creating a culture of engagement. I very much enjoyed this opportunity to learn from such knowledgeable faculty and collaborate with the cohort. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Irma. Valentina Patel.
Good evening, everybody. Just a few comments or a few updates from NOCE. First, I'm very proud to report that NOCE completed its second cycle of institutional climate survey for both employees and students. Although it is not an ACS WASC requirement, but our institution made this decision a few years ago, actually back in 2017, when we completed our first cycle. We decided to engage in this very important work to better gauge institutional experience for our students and employees. It is especially a notable undertaking because the actual instrument is developed in-house by our Office of Institutional Research and Planning, and also administered by our research team. So it's customized and updated yearly, and it's customized to the needs of our very unique institution. What was especially remarkable this year is the high level of student participation. Specifically, we had more than 740 students participating in the survey, even though this time we had to administer it remotely. So it's a significant achievement. The findings of the survey and the DEIA work that NOCE began last year led to the proposal of a new institutional committee, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Anti-Racism Committee, which is being reviewed currently by President's Cabinet. This committee's purpose will be to set the foundation and accountability framework for the integration of diversity, equity, inclusion, and anti-racism in all aspects of NOCE's institutional culture, and also transforming NOCE into an equity-minded institution. So the responsibilities of the committee will be to develop an annual DEIA action plan, including objectives, training for our staff, targeting the key areas of an equity-minded institution, specifically hiring practices, curriculum, professional development, and resource allocation. And my next shout out also has to do with our research team and tremendous work that they had accomplished with our Institutional Effectiveness Committee. It's all in preparation for our upcoming accreditation visit. NOCE is launching its program review model and program review plan. We just began in this fall semester. And again, just like with the institutional climate survey, there's no ready-made program review model for a non-credit institution. So our Institutional Effectiveness Committee and our research team did a lot of groundbreaking work. And our goal is to complete our program review cycle, our first full cycle prior to our accreditation visit, which is scheduled for 2023. Units participating in the first program review cycle are Office of Institutional Research and Planning, Counseling and Student Services, and Career and Technical Education. Again, my gratitude and admiration goes to our research team and Institutional Effectiveness Committee and everybody who was part of this effort. And finally, I just want to thank Benjamin. I hope he's still here for his kind words about NOCE. He's just making us all proud, and stories like his are an inspiration to all of us. And good luck to you, Benjamin, in your studies at Cypress. And I know you're unstoppable. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Joanna Schilling.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Dunchith, and good evening, everyone. In addition to my written report, I wanted to share just a few highlights and some new updates. So tomorrow morning, Kathleen Ryland, Mark Posner, and I will have the opportunity to join aviation instructor Ed Valdez at the Los Alamitos Joint Forces Training Base, where he will take a 15-minute run with the Blue Angels in preparation for the Huntington Beach Air Show, which is this coming weekend. This has long been a dream of Ed's, and although the rest of us will be firmly on the ground watching him, Ed will be wearing a GoPro in order to capture the full run. So we will be sharing the video with you once we receive it. And I hope you all had the opportunity to see the amazing first images of Jupiter and Saturn taken with our telescope in the new Cypress College Planetarium. These photos were shared in my written board report and were taken by Professor Michael Fry and SEM tutor Alex Miyoshi. We're very excited about this new equipment to produce images like those that we shared, and thank the board for supporting these additions to our astronomy program. We hope you'll join us later this fall. As soon as I have dates, I will update you on our scheduled Star Watch evenings, which will be on campus in our new outdoor complex. And speaking of new buildings, you should have all received an invitation to our grand opening on October 19th at 10 a.m. The program will begin promptly at 10 a.m. with photo ops around 10:45 when the program ends, and tours which begin at 11 a.m. We anticipate over 350 people in attendance to celebrate and see our local tax dollars, come to life in these new facilities. And finally, in news that I definitely did not want to share, I must share the sad news that Cypress College's interim campus capital projects manager, Michael Zari, unexpectedly and suddenly passed away this weekend from complications related to COVID-19. You all met Michael many times in this board meeting since he joined the Cypress College team in December 2019. He was the driving force that helped us complete the construction of our brand new science, engineering, and math building. His ability to work collaboratively with our project teams, our campus M&O staff, our construction and architectural teams, his leadership, his dedication, his expertise, and always positive nature were instrumental in the project's success. Even though he was a consultant, we all knew Michael's commitment to Cypress College, and this project was unparalleled. He made a lasting impact on the campus and all of us who had the privilege to work with him. Michael will be remembered as an amazing colleague, but even more, he's going to be remembered for being a friend, and he will be truly missed. We are all devastated by this loss. Michael was 52 years old, and he leaves behind his wife of 28 years, Tiffany, and two grown children, Connor and Lauren. I would like to ask if we may end our meeting tonight in memory of Michael Zari, our friend, our colleague, who left us much too soon. And that's my report.
Thank you, Joanna. And we can certainly end the meeting tonight in Michael Zari's memory. And that is indeed very sad news. So our condolences go out to his family. We're very sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Gil Contreras.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Dunchith. And I just first want to echo our deepest sympathies and condolences to Michael and his loved ones, as well as our colleagues at Cypress College for the loss of our community. Our deepest sympathies and condolences. In addition to my written report, I have 3 additional items to share. First, yesterday, our Fullerton College Child Development and Educational Studies Department provided a tour of our lab school for Senator Josh Newman and Kimberly Gall, who is the president and CEO of First 5 Orange County. I really want to thank Senator Newman and Kimberly Gall for their leadership in this area. I also want to thank and acknowledge our entire team for showcasing the transformational work in our lab school. In addition to the model curriculum, our team showed the Fullerton College spirit of leading with love. It truly reminded all of us the important role Fullerton College plays as a community institution in Orange County. The importance of childcare has been amplified during the last 2 years, and childcare will continue to help families for many years to come. Fullerton College will help prepare teachers serving Orange County for many years to come. Special thanks to Sonia Samana, Veronica Castro, Professors Karen Pavlik, and Dr. Tom Chiramonte. I also want to acknowledge Dr. Jorge Camoa, who is our Dean of Social Sciences, as well as Dr. Jose Ramon Nunez, who is our Vice President of Instruction. Just simply stellar, the work that is going on in our lab school. My second update is the Friends of Fullerton College Foundation hosted its first board meeting for the fall 21 semester yesterday. I want to thank and acknowledge Zoot Velasco, the Executive Director of the Friends of Fullerton College Foundation, as well as Keisha Shadwick, the Administrative Assistant 3 for our Friends of Fullerton College Foundation. Our team has done an exceptional job of transitioning and launching the Friends of Fullerton College. Special thanks to Interim Chancellor Fred Williams, Faculty Senate President Dr. Kim Orlejan, Classified Senate President Marwin Luminarius, and all the Fullerton College Vice Presidents and board members, and especially Trustee Rodarte for participating in yesterday's meeting. We look forward to sharing with you the amazing work done by the Friends of Fullerton College throughout the year. And finally, my third update is the Hornet Student Leadership Retreat will take place on October 15th. This one-of-a-kind leadership retreat provides students with opportunities to develop leadership skills and network with other students and staff. The retreat will be a hybrid event with virtual leadership workshops the first half of the day, followed by a Star Wars Jedi, just, equitable, diverse, inclusive themed movie night in the campus quad. Of course, we will follow strict COVID safety protocols. The Star Wars Jedi theme allows students to consider their leadership role and strengths at school and their communities while bonding for future Hornet leadership activities. I would like to thank the entire team in Student Life and Leadership and recognize Dr. Naomi Abisamis, Dr. Joe Carithers, Dr. Elaine Lipis Gonzalez, and the collaboration across the campus for investing in the curriculum, the time, and love in our student leaders. This concludes my report.
Thank you very much. I understand that Kai Stearns has no report, so we will move to Rainey Hambley.
I have no report for a DMA at this time. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And welcome. Jennifer O.
I don't believe that Jennifer with us this evening.
Not with us. Okay. Dr. Damon De La Cruz.
All right, thank you. Just a couple updates out of the Cypress College Senate. At our last meeting, we had Vice President of Student Services, Paul De Dios, give us an update about student services and go over some of the happenings on that end of campus. We also got an update for the vaccine verification process from Interim Chancellor Fred Williams. Thank you for visiting us, Interim Chancellor. We had one action item where the Senate showed support on giving faculty more information about the hiring process from the district. It seemed like there was a discussion during one of our Senate meetings where faculty didn't feel well informed, and we decided it would be something that we might deliver through a flex day event. End of report.
Thank you. Dr. Kim Orlejan.
Good evening. Thank you. First, I'd like to extend my condolences as well to Michael's family and his Cypress family as well. So at its September 16th Senate meeting, the Faculty Senate set its goals for the academic year. They include addressing students' basic needs, including but not limited to working on maintaining a free breakfast program, The second is to implement the 2021 Faculty Senate Anti-Racism Task Force's recommendations. And the third, and most exciting, to revise the Faculty Senate bylaws and constitution. Also, the Senate passed an open educational resources resolution brought to the body by Fullerton College's OER liaison to the statewide academic senate, Jane Ishibashi. In essence, the resolution is a statement of support for increasing student access to high quality OER and for bringing the topic of OER into discussions about college goals, strategic plans, student equity plans, etc. And then the last item, upon request from Interim President Contreras that PAC members bring this topic to the constituency groups, Faculty Senate recommended adding a student member to the interim dean selection committees and the interim VP hiring committee structures, and also recommended adding a classified professional to the interim VP hiring or search committee membership. The Senate had recommended adding a classified professional to the interim dean committee membership last spring, and that recommendation was approved and is reflected in our integrated planning manual. PAC subsequently took up this topic this past week, and it was supported. So the interim dean and interim vice president search committees will include 3 faculty members, usually selected by the impacted divisions and then elected by the Faculty Senate, 1 student, 1 classified professional, and 3 managers, including the college president, who makes the final determination. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Christy Deep.
Christy had to leave the meeting suddenly.
Okay, thank you. Elaine Leoza, did I say that right? Welcome.
Yes, hi, Elaine Loaiza. Hello, everyone. My report is about CSEA. We just have a tentative agreement with the district and are waiting for approval from CSEA before we hold a ratification vote. Also, our chapter would like to thank our negotiating team for an awesome job. Thank you.
Thank you. Very pleased to hear. Dash Johnson.
Thank you. Our condolences go out to the family of Michaels. We are sorry to hear about this loss. In recognition of National Register to Vote Day, Adjunct Faculty United hosted a COPE meeting for our members. COPE stands for Committee on Political Education and is the advocacy part of the union used for legislative and electoral engagement. In addition to working to make local and state government more equitable for adjuncts and the students we serve, we talked about our plans to host a student voter registration. Now more than ever, it's so important that students make their voices heard. As ADFAC's new executive director, I look forward to connecting with students. I also plan to reach out to more of you to talk about ways we can work together to help make the North Orange County Community College District a better place to work for its employees and learn for its students. This work is very important to me. I myself am the proud product of Orange County Community Colleges, and my dad was an adjunct ESL instructor. He was a freeway flyer when he worked in colleges all across the San Francisco Bay Area. As we've said before, ADFAC stands in solidarity with the 2 other unions in the North Orange County Community College District. And we also believe that construction projects should use union labor and local hire. We are disappointed to hear that our friends at the Orange County Labor Federation, they told us that the music drama complex is not being built with union labor and that the North Orange County Community College District does not have a planned labor agreement. Working families in Orange County, many of whom have students at our campuses, deserve a community college district with more equitable hiring processes. That applies to our members who deserve better pathways to full-time employment and others who rely on our district for employment. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Aaron LaCourte.
Hi, I wanted to extend my condolences to Michael's family as well, and to the Cypress family. It's Cypress, I mean, we're technically family, right? I wanted to thank the hardworking folks at Fullerton College for doing a great job with the check-in stations and for keeping the campus running and supporting students and faculty. I can't believe we're in our 6th week of school and the semester is really flying by. I wanted to give a shout out to Coach Pink from Cypress College for his Assistant Coach of the Year award. I had the pleasure of taking his surfing class a few years ago and had a great time. So that's how I connected with Coach Pink, or Bill Pinkham. Also wanted to give a shout out to the 2 softball co-head coaches, Crystal Aguirre and Marian Speedy Mendoza, for being named Orange Empire Conference Coaches of the Year. Had an opportunity to meet them during their championship game and was just blown away with how they coached their team. They're both so inspirational. Wanted to welcome Dr. Elaine Lippis Gonzalez for being appointed to their new position, serving as the interim Vice President of Student Services. So welcome, Dr. Lippis Gonzalez. Just wanted to also say that Associated Students has completed our center elections, and so we can't wait to meet our new senators who will be serving different, hopefully will be serving on different standing committees as soon as possible, and CDO committees as well. Associated Students was pleased that Faculty Senate and the President's Advisory Council has passed motions allowing students to be part of the shared governance with the upcoming hiring committees that will be taking place within the next upcoming months. I want to remind folks that Hispanic Heritage Month ends on October 14th. And if you have the chance, please join the district-wide event. But last but not least, Associated Students cannot wait to attend our Hornet Leadership Retreat. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much.
Go Hornets.
Candian.
I would also like to start off by offering my condolences to Michael's family and friends. I just want to give a quick shout out and thank our Cypress College Food Pantry for all the hard work they've been doing in servicing our students, and that they are now accepting donations of diapers and period products. I also want to congratulate our Cypress College girls soccer team for ranking 2nd in the nation. And lastly, report that our Associated Students is sending 10 of our officers, including myself, to represent Cypress College at the state level at the SSCCC Development and Leadership Conference this weekend. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Bent.
Very sorry to hear about Michael. My condolences to his family and coworkers at Cypress. And other than that, I don't have a report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Brown.
Yeah, definitely. That's bad news for Cypress, for Michael's family. Most sincere condolences to him, and to his family. The new buildings at Cypress are monuments to the great work he was doing for us, and he will be greatly missed. Other than that, I have no comments.
Thank you. Trustee Rodarte.
Yes, I too want to give my condolences to Michael's friends and family. I'm sure they're experiencing a very difficult time right now. In other news, there was the Friends of Fullerton Foundation meeting yesterday, and it was a very productive introductory meeting. We did review the executive report. We did approve some components to that report, and one of the priorities that was echoed throughout the report was the need for emergency grants for our students, kind of tying to just addressing basic needs. And we will have our next meeting for December 15th, and we will have our board retreat January 19th of obviously next year. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Trustee Lopez.
Thank you, Madam President. So I offer my condolences as well to Michael's family. I also would like to thank our ADFAC representative for bringing up the issue of project labor agreements on our construction. I too believe that we have to be very aware and intentional about ensuring that the benefits from the construction, the economic benefits from the jobs, do go as much as possible to local workers and benefit our local economy. It's an issue I've raised before. We did have a study session on project labor agreements some time back, last year or perhaps the year before. It's an issue we have not yet resolved yet, but I think we do need to come back to. So I'll be agendizing that for the future. Thank you.
Trustee Blount?
Yes, I'm sure I interacted with Michael on several occasions and several tours and all, and it, yeah, he will be missed, and he did a great job, and I appreciated him, and best wishes to his family that maybe they have a good support team and a lot of friends to rally around them. Other than that, I have no report.
Thank you. Trustee Rosales.
I also want to extend my condolences to Michael's family and echo what everyone's saying here. To hear that this happened is really sad. So condolences to the family. Also, I too agree with Trustee Lopez and our adjunct faculty union member. We do have to, provide more focus on PLA, and definitely have had this conversation in the past. I would like for us to really, bring more focus into bringing some of those works and projects to our local community work members and union. So lastly, I'd like to say congratulations to Dr. Lipis Gonzalez for your interim position. Welcome for your new role. And I look forward to working with you as well. And that will conclude my report.
Thank you. I just have a couple updates. I did attend the CCCT meeting a couple weeks ago. One of the things that we did spend a lot of time on, which many community college districts are spending time on, is dealing with COVID, and many other districts like ours are implementing a vaccine requirement, and kind of all the different nuances of that. A couple of takeaways that I had from that presentation, and it was done by different in-house legal members. Many boards have a full-time lawyer that is appointed as part of the board or part of chancellor's staff. We at North Orange do not have that, but so several of, I think 4 of these from different districts was part of kind of this presentation. And so my takeaways of it, first of all, was that it's very difficult terrain that we're trying to navigate. We're trying to be as safe to all of our employees and students as possible, recognizing that sometimes what we want to do or what we should do is not always what we can do. We have implemented the November 1st vaccine deadline, but there's a lot of nuances that we need to work out and be respectful of things like labor agreements and stuff like that. The other kind of takeaway I had was that anything we do or don't do involves a certain amount of risks. So we've heard a lot of comments. We heard one again tonight that there's concern if we do require the vaccine mandate, and that there's people saying that it's illegal or that they will sue us. And then there's also risks involved if we don't do anything. So what I'm asking for tonight, as much as possible, is for people throughout the district to step up and to be kind of cheerleaders behind what the board has requested, because I still believe very firmly that this is in the best interest of everyone in our district. I also would like to read a statement from my union, which is part of CFT. They've actually come out with a resolution in support of vaccine mandates. And they have come out saying that about 85% of CFT members are vaccinated currently, and that 85% of CFT members are supportive of policies requiring vaccination verification or regular testing. and that also a very large majority, 79% of their members, believe it's important for students to have a mandate. So I wanted to share that. I don't know if it's linked on their website, but I'm happy to share the full report and the resolution with anyone that would like it. But I did want to share that. And then and then the last thing was that I believe as a leader that you need to lead. So I did upload my vaccination information to the NOCCD portal. It took me less than a minute, maybe two, or it didn't take very long. The hardest thing for me was to figure out my passcode to get into the system. But once in, it was very seamless. You upload the vaccination card, and there's a disclaimer about the information will be safe, it will be protected. They didn't ask any other medical information about me. So I want to tell everybody it's very easy to do. It was not intrusive, and that it will protect medical identity. So I hope that we can get a coalition of the willing and the supporters to get behind this. And so we can move forward for the safety of the majority of our members, our students, our employees, and our community members. So the only other comment I have is a save the date, and the save the date is for Americana. And the date for the 2022 Americana will be March 26th. It will be live at the Disneyland Hotel. It's a different date than normally. Normally we have it on the last Saturday in February, but due to COVID, the dates all got messed up. So we will be having it a little bit later this year, March 26th. It's always a wonderful event, and the proceeds go to help the students at Cypress. So with that said, I am done with the comments, and we can move forward to the next section on the agenda, which is approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of September 14th. Are there any corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, could I entertain a motion?
So moved.
I think it was moved by Evangelina and then seconded by Trustee Bent.
Sure.
Did I get that right? Okay. All right, we need a roll call vote.
Trustee Bent,
Aye.
Trustee Blount,
Aye.
Trustee Brown,
Aye.
Trustee Denchi,
Yes.
Trustee Lopez,
Aye.
Trustee Rodarte,
Yes.
Trustee Rosales,
Aye.
Student Trustee LaCourte,
Can't find my unmute button. Yes.
and Student Trustee Pan.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Is there a need for closed session at this time?
No need,
And there won't be a report out, will there?
no readout tonight.
Okay. All right, that moves us to item 3C. And before we do entertain 3C, D, and E, there is a report, correct?
Correct. So good evening. As Dr. Dunshee mentioned, we do have a presentation that will be conducted by Rodrigo Garcia related to items C, D, and E, some major issues that we have over related to Fullerton College constructions. Just to alert the board and kind of summarize item 3C, I do look for a decision this evening. I need to contact the state chancellor's office in terms of what direction we're actually going on this. And so that's the one that's kind of the most critical time sensitive item. Item D is a major change in kind of our bond construction program over at Fullerton College. And in the report that Rodrigo is going to do, you'll kind of see what the impact of this, if we make this decision this evening, what the ramifications would be related to other projects on the campus. Item 3D is something that we may or may not want to make a decision on this evening because it is such a major decision affecting the Fullerton College campus. Depending upon the decision related to 3D, then we'll need to take action on 3E, either to pull the item or to make a recommendation to increase the architect fees, but that will depend. So that's why they're kind of in the sequence that they're in. And one last comment is there was a comment made by the resource table about having union workers related to our music bill. We don't even have a project yet. It's still in conceptual here this evening. We're talking about whether we want to even move to the design document phase of this project. So I just wanted to kind of answer that question right up front. Rod, do you want to do a presentation?
Sure. Thank you, Fred. Well, good evening. Before I begin, I want to also share my condolences to Mike's family and the Cypress family. Mike was a great colleague and an even better person. So my condolences to his family. Well, with that, I'm going to be doing a quick, well, I won't say quick, a presentation, an update on our 300, 500 renovation, as well as our performing arts project. So we'll begin first with the 300, 500 renovation project. Next slide, please. So just to give you a little bit of background, originally this FPP was submitted in 2009 as a 51-49% project. The scope included modernization and support instructional spaces, as well as modernized instructional infrastructure, utilities, support current and future infrastructure. And this included just minor seismic strengthening as recommended in the 2007 structural report. The target renovation cost included a contingency, and it was set at a 40% replacement cost, which is a DSA renovation requirement. The actual requirement is 50% before automatic seismic upgrades are mandated. That's why our target was 40%. So next slide, please. So the project was approved and awarded funding by the state early 2017, so about 8 years after we submitted the FPP. Once the working drawings were completed and approved by DSA, the campus went out to the market to bid for contracted services in early 2021. When we received those bids, all the bids were not only above the 40% target that we had set, but also well above the 50% DSA allowed renovation versus replacement cost, which again triggers automatic seismic upgrades, which would be a scope change to the approved projects. All the bids were rejected, and the team was tasked to look to reduce the scope of the project in such a way that it would continue to meet both the state chancellors and DSA requirements, which means we would have to reduce the scope without actually reducing the programming. Because if we would reduce the programming, then that would be another change in scope. Next slide, please. So based on the required scope and nature of the building being renovated, as well as the volatility of the construction market, the design team was unable to reduce the scope in a way that would effectively achieve the 40% target. And the reason we were shooting for 40% and not closer to 50 is because this is a renovation project, and there's a lot more unknowns in a renovation than there is in a brand new building. So we needed some sort of cushion, but we weren't able to achieve that without actually reducing the programming, which we didn't want to do because that meant we were taking away from the program. So in an effort to salvage one or both buildings, the college reached out to DSA, and DSA suggested that we incorporated voluntary seismic retrofit, which would mean that we would contract with an engineer and evaluate what seismic needs these buildings had, and then actually present those to DSA for seismic retrofit to be incorporated into the projects. Next slide, please. So both buildings, once we had the tier 1 seismic retrofit report from our engineer, and we incorporated those costs into both projects were reaching the state threshold of 80% of renovation versus replacement cost. where renovation is deemed too high or too costly to proceed. So this isn't a DSA regulation, it's a Chancellor's Office regulation. This impacted our 500 building and not necessarily our 300 building, only because the 300 building is deemed a historical building. It's registered as a historical building. So is not, replacement is not an option for that building. So we felt it wasn't fiscally responsible to continue to spend close to 80% for the 500 building, since it's a 1950s tilt-up building, and it really wouldn't be adding a much, a real long useful life, and it would only cost just a bit more to replace it. So next slide, please. So here's just a quick chart of showing you. So these aren't total costs. These are the costs that are incorporated into the formula from the state in order to come up with a renovation cost versus replacement cost. So as you can see, the original cost of the replacement cost with the contingencies for the 300 was $15 million. 500 was just over $19.5 million. The estimated renovation costs, as you can see there for both buildings, brought both of them well above the 50%, which changed the scope of our approved project and also triggered seismic upgrades. So using the estimated renovation cost with the voluntary seismic upgrades, based on the information we got from the engineer, the estimated cost for the 300 was just over $12 million and just over $15 million for the 500 building, bringing both percentages to 79% and 77% respectively. But like I said, for the 300 building, replacement is not an option. So because it is registered as a historical building, we are not allowed to tear it down and replace it. Next slide, please. So some of the unknowns that we have for this project is retaining state funding for the 300 only. If we were to descope the 500 building, is also up to the state chancellor and Department of Finance approval. If we were to be approved for the state funding for the 300 building, that would be an estimated $6.1 million. The campus would have to forfeit the remaining $9.3 million that we're receiving for the 500 building, including the amount that we've already spent for the design of $480,000. If the state does not approve any of descoping and basically does not approve the entire project, the campus would forfeit the estimated $15.4 million, including, which is the entire state funding that we're getting for this project, including the amount that we've already spent, which is close to $800,000. So next slide, please. So here's, I just want to kind of depict the different scenarios. So as you can see here, it's the scenarios for the 300 building alone or for both the entire project altogether. So the estimated total cost plus the voluntary seismic upgrade for the 300 alone would be close to $21 million. For both projects combined, it would be about $45 million. If you can see here, if we were to be awarded only the 300 building, we would maintain the $6.1 million. If the entire project was awarded, which included the 500, it would be the entire amount of $15.4 million. I also depict here the amount of bond money that we would have to use. And then in the fourth column here, I have our balance that we currently have in our Measure J funds allocated to this project. So basically, if we descope the 500 and the state allows us to keep the 300 building state funds, that means that we would be able to have $4.6 million of money that we currently have set aside for the 500 building to allocate to other projects. If they do not approve keeping the funds for the 300, we would be roughly short $1.5 million to renovate the 300 building on our own. if they were to award the 300, 500 and let us keep the entire amount, we would be short about $10.1 million. And if we wanted to renovate both buildings and we lost the entire funding from the state, we would be short about $25.5 million. Next slide, please. So with that, the recommendation from Fullerton College, we believe that it'd be in the best interest for the college, the district, and the state to completely descope the Building 500 renovation project and proceed separately with the rehabilitation of the 300 building with the voluntary seismic upgrade and push off not the renovation of the 500 building, but the replacement of the 500 building to future bond issuance. So that's just a quick update on the 300, 500. Fred, did you want to jump in? I'll continue with the other project and then we'll leave some time for questions after the presentation.
Just as also as a recommendation is to address the state chancellor's office and the Department of Finance to try to secure that $6.1 million that we think was appropriated for the 300. It's a long shot, but it's worth a try to go up and try to get those dollars. Making no promises because it's not typical where they would split a project or change the scope and allow for additional funding. But it's worth a try.
Yeah, and at this point, regardless of the option that we take, it would be a change in scope from the awarded project, because the awarded project basically is we're unable to do because we're unable to get under the 50% threshold. Okay, next slide, please. So update on the Performing Arts replacement project. So a little background on this. So this was originally budgeted as a 50-50 project in 2019 at a $593 per square foot. This was using the Chancellor's Office Construction Cost Index, the CCCI, that we have to use when we submit an FPP. Historically, the cost index is understated compared to the market cost trends. The state did award the district an unprecedented 78.22% project, which was great news to us. Because we know that historically that index is understated. It was an option it was recommended by the campus for the savings that we received because it was originally set as a 50-50 project. The additional savings that we received because the Chancellor's Office was matching 78% was to keep those funds in this project because we knew there was going to be a discrepancy. Unfortunately, we did not forecast the discrepancy being so large. Next slide, please. So the market, as we know, has changed significantly due to the lack of labor, materials from the time of award until the seismic design phase was done, which is where we complete the program reconciliation process. So the combination of the understatement of the cost index that we need to use to come up with the FPP to get awarded from the state and the market increase resulted in a significant delta in the cost. The Pfeiffer, which is the architect company that was selected to design this building, cost estimate was reconciled by a third-party estimator hired by the campus. So the architect has a cost estimator that put together an estimate, and then we hired a third-party estimator to validate that estimate. So additional architects were also consulted independently to quote current condition cost. And as you know, the cost index was around $593 per square foot. And when we were doing the comparisons, for comparable facilities, they were coming in at between $975 to $1,100 a square foot, which is a significant difference. Next slide, please. So after we validated the cost estimate, we had an option to renegotiate or adjust the cost of the project, which also affected the architect fees. So during the negotiations of this adjustment, there was a decrease of 1% to the architect fees. So what we did is using the Department of General Services, which is the California Construction Cost Index, it shows that from January 21 through September 21, inflation was about 11.24%. So the calculated fees for our architect went from 7.195, and it was reduced to 6,007,280, which decreased 16.51%, which completely eliminated the inflation plus an additional amount.
So Rod, can I just add something here real quick? And so while we had a reduction in the fee, the actual amount of the construction cost went from 43 million to $84 million. So that's, you kind of need to look at both of those pieces together.
Correct. Next slide, please. So here's just a quick breakdown of the differences between the initial estimate and the current reconciled cost, as well as our budget in the Measure J versus the reconciled cost. So as you can see here, when we submitted the JCAF 32, which is the FPP to the state, using the $593 per square foot, the estimated construction cost was a little bit over 43 million. Total cost was a little bit over 61 million. Once the schematic design and programming was reconciled and we were able to come up with a better estimate, the actual estimated construction cost was 84 million, and the total project cost was a little bit over 119 million. As you can see there, the differences is 40 million for construction costs and 57 million, or close to $58 million for total project cost. So as you can see, the delta on the bottom line shows it's not the same delta as the total cost. And one of the reasons for that is, like I mentioned before, because it was originally budgeted at 50-50 and it came in at 78-22, we kept the budget in that project. So as you can see here, between what we funded in Measure J and the state funding, we have close to just under $72 million in the budget, compared to what we think the estimated cost will be 119 for a difference of just under $48 million. Next slide, please. So at the time, Pfeiffer accepted the final proposal, including a one-time potential fee adjustment based on the updated construction cost estimate at the completion of the schematic design. So an increase to the construction cost was not totally unanticipated, as you know, as we knew the cost, the rates that we used are usually understated. So in the January board agenda item that was approved, there was language in there that said, after the review of the construction cost estimate, the district may make adjustments to the overall project budget, which will include an increase to the architectural fees listed in the agenda. So the negotiated rate was around 7% based on the 8% flat fee, which was the starting point. Next slide, please. So just a little background on how the architect was selected. You know, we went through a rigorous design team selection criteria and process. We provided them the district master agreement for 2020 as part of the proposal materials, which structured the architect fees based on the percentage of construction cost. The state approves approved fees based on the percentage of construction costs as well. All the proposals that we received were within 1% of the state approved fees that were based on the cost index that we used. And then Pfeiffer was selected unanimously by the committee. So some of the impacts that I want to just talk about, whether if we choose not to continue with our current architect, it would be a significant schedule impact. This would push schedule delay between 6 and 9 months. This will require revisiting of the preliminary plans that have already been completed by the state and Currently, the state matching dollars for that portion has already been spent. Based on the accuracy of the construction cost, if we were out to do an RFP now using what we think the real cost estimate is, it would be unlikely that we would achieve any savings in architectural fees. And the Department of Finance will make a district responsible also for the escalation cost for the delays. And that's about 4 to 5% annually if the changes are approved. And that's close to just roughly $280,000 a month. Next slide, please. So successful implementation of the campus facility master plan is dependent on this music drama complex. This includes the demolition of the 1100 building and the 1300 building, making way for our future welcome center, as well as a relocation of a current chiller plant. If the district were to choose not to move forward with this project and forfeit the estimated $41 million that we're receiving from the state, this project would be we would be unable to construct using our current bond measures. Because not only would we have to figure out how to come up with the $48 million that we're short, but also we would have to come up with the $41 million that we would be forfeiting from the state. So the following, all of these construction updates were shared and discussed through our shared governance, which is PBSC, which is our Planning Budget Steering Committee, and as well as PAC, which is our President's Advisory Council. Next slide, please. So here, if we move forward with this project, it will result with a potential postponing of these projects that are listed below. Are lower in the priority of our future bond projects to a future bond project. So that would be, just to go through some of these, is the renovation of the building 840. This is primarily DSS is in this building. Currently, DSS is scheduled to be housed in our new welcome center. So that should take care of that issue. This would be also postponing our new thermal energy storage that potentially we could use some of our infrastructure funds that we have in the bond fund, which is close to $23 million. Renovation of our 600 building, which originally when this bond measure was set up was supposed to be a state funded project, because as you can see here, the $3 million that are allocated to renovating the 600 building is by nowhere near the actual amount that we need to renovate that building. The health center, which is also incorporated into our new Chapman Newell property that we are actually just awarded to our design build team, and we'll begin our programming soon. So that should take care of that issue. We have the wellness center and the faculty lounge and offices renovation. Currently, both of these are in our 1200 building, that which is shown in our updated facility master plan as for that building to be replaced. And the renovation of the 3100 building, which is a small building across the street from Berkeley, which houses our academic computing, and then also renovating the 2100 building, which is our Wilshire Auditorium. And currently the design for the Performing Arts Center is complementing that existing building now with incorporating certain courtyards in between those two buildings. So pushing these projects off gives us a savings of close to $42 million, which still leaves us a difference of just over $6 million. But we're hoping that potentially a cost offset from the state index adjustment to mid-year of 2024. We estimate that that would be about $5.8 million that they would increase this project, or the funding, I should say, which leaves us with an estimated difference of just a little bit over $300,000. Next slide. So again, both of these both need to be approved by the Chancellor's Office and the Department of Finance as well. So that is also an unknown. But the recommendation from Fullerton College is that we believe that it would be in the best interest for the college and district to move forward with this project at the increased cost in order to better serve both our performing arts students and staff, and also align with our facility master plan. And then with that, I believe that is the end of my slides.
So a couple comments that I would like to make, Rod, on that is the information that's before you, before the board this evening is really, we're in the stage of going from schematic design and preliminary plans to the working drawing phase. So we're still very early into this project, and if we wanted to make pull this project out, now would be a good time to pull it out. We have not, until we get the working drawings completed, get DSA approval, get Department of Finance and the Chancellor's Office approval, then we would be ready to bid the project. At that particular time, we would bring this back to the board. The delivery method that we're using on this project is going to be the CM multi-prime. So we'll be breaking these down to the lowest trade denominations, so we can actually get the smaller contractors and the local contractors involved in the bidding, because they'll be broken down by trades versus having large contracts out on them. So with that,
well, and I just wanted to make one more comment, Fred. So, and then also, as far as the agenda item for the increase in the architect fees, the increase is only incorporated into the design development and moving forward. So the original schematic design that have already been completed is based on the old percentage, as well as the old, the initial cost of $43 million. So that will not be adjusted, only design development and moving forward.
Okay, so let's open it up to questions.
Are we talking about these agenda items one at a time, or are we just discussing them all right now?
If we could start on the 300, 500, because that's the one that's the most critical for us to communicate to the State Chancellor's Office, because this project is, as Rod had pointed out in the presentation, started back in 2009. And we've kind of been holding off on this project until our new instructional building is completed. So the Chancellor's Office has already granted us several extensions on this project, and they're anxious for us to finally make a decision. And I did tell them we were taking this to the board this evening. So if we could start on that one, I would appreciate the discussion on the 300, 500 modernization first.
Okay, so if we're going to do that, then can we get a motion in a second? And then we can begin the discussion. Moved by Trustee Rodarte.
Second.
Yes, sorry for interrupting.
Seconded by Trustee Rosales. Okay, now the questions. So this is item 3D or 3C, sorry. C as in cat. Any
I've got a question on it.
Sure.
No one else does. Okay, the recommendation is to remove the 500 building entirely and go ahead with the 300. The 300 will cost $19.5 million. What about not doing either the 300 or 500? It looks like there are other uses for the $19.5 million. What would be the problem with not doing either of them at this point and repurposing that money for something else?
That is an option. That's one we didn't really consider, because we know the 300 building does need renovations on that and to extend the life. And we were able to secure state funding for that. Or we think we can still save the dollars on that. So maybe a different way to look at that is, if we decide to de-scope the 500, a potential different option. If we can't get funding on it, maybe that's the solution. We return all the money and don't do either project.
And that would be a conversation we would have to have with the division, because throughout this process, we've been working with the divisions as well, and we've had their support in our recommendations. So we would have to go back and work with the division because as we said, the 300, it is a 1930s building, and it does need a lot of help.
But it sounded like the potential for continuing the state funding, if we split these apart, is kind of iffy. And is the main need for 300 building to do seismic retrofits, or is it really for renovating? Because obviously the seismic retrofits would be a much smaller cost if that's really what is the most needed things. And again, that could free up a lot of other money.
Yeah, it would be both for this building. Renovation and seismic.
The original intent was to renovate the building because the pricing has gone over the 40%. Now we're actually the 50%, it kicks in the required seismic work. So seismic is required because of the cost escalation.
So I have a couple questions then. So I've pulled out my facility educational master plan to see where it fits. And just maybe you can address this. If we did what Trustee Brown asked, how would that fit with the master plan for Fullerton College?
Well, I believe in the master plan, both the 300 and 500 building were in the master plan for renovations. So depending upon where we go with that, those would be delayed until someday you're going to need to renovate both of those buildings. The recommendation is to do the 300 renovation and then push the 500 building to a replacement building versus doing a renovation. So tearing the whole thing down, as we kind of alluded to on a number of situations, that is dependent on a future bond. And I don't know what the board's appetite for doing a future bond. So it could be extended for indefinitely.
So my question is that did the campus kind of prioritize some of these? So is this 300 and 500 building high on the list of campus priorities? And is that where they have chosen to use the bond money?
It was the first project we did. We started off in this in the new issuance in the Measure J. That was the first project that we started.
Mm-hmm. And what are the departments in those buildings?
It's primarily business CIS.
Okay. Because according, the master plan, it says that we want to prioritize and enhance the visibility of academic and associated student programs. So are those are important programs, I'm assuming, for the campus. Okay, so that would necessitate the need. And then part of the other thing is to respect, I'm just reading from the master plan, respect and celebrate the unique heritage and historical significance of the campus. We cannot tear down the 300 building, right?
Nope.
Okay, so it has to be renovated.
Correct.
All right. So that, I just wanted to, okay, anybody else have questions?
I have a quick question, and just to confirm, you said that the architect moving forward, it would be for new design and development if there was some type of renovation. Is that correct?
No, I think that's for the performing arts building.
Oh, okay, got it.
So we're just looking at item 3C at this point, and 3C is asking, the recommendation is to de-scope the 500 building from its current renovation project and renovate the Fullerton College 300 building, including seismic upgrades, using the Measure J funding and any state funds that we can recoup. So that's the recommendation that's on the table. Any other questions on that?
I'd like to get a clarification. What would be the instructional impact of not doing renovation on 300 building at this point? If it needs seismic retrofits, you're doing that, but not doing renovation, what would be the instructional impacts of putting that off till sometime later?
Basically just bringing the division more into the 21st century. And that building, like I said, is 1930s building. Is one of the, it's had many different renovations in there. So it's, if you walk through, it's kind of like a hodgepodge of different things. So in order to meet the current needs for what the division needs, that's what the renovations for, is really to meet their instructional needs based on the facilities that we currently have.
Okay, I see Dr. Contreras' hand.
Yes, thank you. And Trustee Brown, I think it's an excellent question, but in the 300 building, it houses our business and CIS academic programs, and there are a lot of technology improvements in the curriculum design in those areas. And since it is a dated building, it would be important to have those physical renovations to bring up to, current standards for our faculty to use the different technologies in business and CIS. It's also important to note that during COVID, some of those areas have done well in the remote environment and have been able to utilize technology through pedagogy, through instruction to reach more students during this time. It's particularly one of the areas that has grown in the remote format. So the instructional impact will definitely be felt by our faculty, if we're not able to, move some of these programs into the 21st century, as Vice President Garcia said.
I believe Trustee Rodarte had her hand up.
I just had a minor question regarding, and correct me if I'm wrong, but business is one of the more popular majors for our students, correct?
Perhaps Dr. Nunez, do you have, some information about the academic programs there? Oh, there we go.
Yes, no, I'm on mute now. Yes, business is one of the most popular programs, but also a program that is growing in the last few years is the CIS program, the Computer Information Systems. And as Vice President Garcia mentioned, the building cannot hold the data needed because there is no access to the infrastructure of the data, even the power. We were going to install a new equipment, if I remember right, 4 or 5 years ago, new computers, and we couldn't because there was not enough power in the building. We couldn't do that, and we had to move it to a different building.
Yeah, so although this is a historical building, basically from the outside, the renovation is a complete gut of the inside, meaning redoing the classrooms for the appropriate class sizes, and as Dr. Nunez said, providing the data and power needed.
And if I may add something that we are not talking here about, that building is not accessible for handicapped people. Anybody in a wheelchair would have a hard time to get into many of those classrooms and in the bathrooms. So there is not accessible, and the renovation will take care of that also.
So it sounds like it would be a safe statement to say that the campus would prefer to use the $19.5 million on the 300 building than to do that same amount for some of the other projects that would end up getting, potentially put off a while later. Is that a fair statement?
Correct.
Trustee Brown, we have had numerous conversations with our specialists up in Sacramento, and while when we first started the discussion with them, anytime you approach a scope change, the first answer from them is absolutely not. The last several conversations that we had with them, telling them that we were going to the board, their attitude changed significantly, and we've actually had a changeover in our specialist up in Sacramento, and Rick has been meeting with our new specialist, and he is supportive. But again, we got to get through the Chancellor's office, and then we got to get through the Department of Education, the Department of Finance as well on this. So it is a change in scope. But the issues that we're having here related to the cost escalation is not something that we, as a single district, are experiencing. This is kind of a statewide issue, and Rick's on the statewide facilities coalition, meeting with the Chancellor's office staff, and this has been brought up as a major issue in terms of the numbers that they're using, and it triggers the seismic, and that's kind of one of the things that first started this whole issue. So we've done everything we can on this that we could on this project. We think the best solution at this point is to go forward with the 300 building, give back the 500 building, and try to secure the funding that we can.
Trustee LaCourte, I see your hand.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, just listening to the presentation. Thank you so much for all that information. I think that first and foremost, that investment in this is, you can't get, the academic value ends up being great, especially if this is one of the most, growing ones, especially during the pandemic. And it's like, business CIS, they grew. And I feel that we need to get to the 21st century in updating these buildings and providing that for students. I think the one thing that really surprised me was the fact that, accessibility in these buildings, it's like building 300, that needs to definitely be addressed. Now I understand the cost when it comes to building things or, in the sense of like, when you have a car, let's say you damage your car's worth something, right? But it gets to the point where it costs the cost of the repairs way too much based on what the car value is. So you have to, basically say, hey, that car's a total loss. Now, with this situation and looking at it in that sense, it's like, yeah, I understand like wanting to demolish the 500 building. And looking towards the future, I think that having that building totally, built from the ground up would be great for students. And again, the one thing that really caught my attention was the accessibility for that 300 building. So again, on the way I look at it, the academic value is, I'm looking for it to be for students on that end.
Any other questions? I didn't see any other hands.
Madam President, I have a quick question.
Sure.
So with regard to the 300 building, it sounds like it's perhaps one of the most challenging options for making the buildings, for making the kinds of changes that are needed for business in terms of the technological needs. So I wonder, has any consideration been given to moving business to another building and putting something in 300 that would be that wouldn't need all that? In other words, teaching foreign languages or something like that wouldn't need. It seems like we're picking the worst possible building for the particular needs of that discipline.
Just a comment, when we submit the FPP to the state, they're very particular in terms of when they make approval. So we ask to go in with the actual programs. If we want to go ahead and do the renovations now and then change it after everything is completed, that's an option. But if we go in there with both a de-scoping of the 500 building and then changing the whole program, essentially we really take out the option of asking for funding from the state. What they'll tell us is get back in line if you want to get additional funding. So I think it's a push to get us to go forward with the scope change, but we're not making any changes in the program that we submitted for our FPP.
I'll just mention that I support this recommendation, but I'm very concerned about the long-term possibility of completing the 500 building and where those funds will come from, if and when it'll ever happen. I, for one, do not have an appetite for another bond. The taxpayers are paying till the year 2056, I believe, and I don't believe the taxpayers have appetite for another tax increase either. So I think the last one passed very, very closely. So I'd be very concerned about counting on that for the future. I think we need to make the most of what we have. And so I support the recommendation. I appreciate all the effort that's gone into this. And sorry, it looks like we can't do both right now. I wish that we could. And hopefully there's a path forward in the future for the 500 also. I hope that we can retain this amount of state funds and they don't change their minds based on this recommendation. But based on what we have before us, I would approve this. If there is a major change in the allocation of state funds, then I'd like to see it come back or to keep us apprised of what's going on. But I'll support the recommendation as it is.
All right, are there any other questions? I don't see any other hands.
Let's get a clarification on that. I think, Ed's suggestion is really interesting. Fred, is it possible to go in parallel paths to see, which of the two options or both the state might be willing to continue funding for, either, just doing the 300 building, or as Ed suggested, do a change of who is in the building. If we said, here's two possibilities, are you going to look okay on one and not on the other? Or if we say we've got two possibilities, are going to say, well, that's too much for you to consider.
Well, I'm going to reach out to the campus in terms of what the possibility of changing the overall programming. A lot of work has been done with the department in terms of putting the FPP together. This thing has been submitted, as Rod mentioned, back in 2009, and several other resubmittals. So we've kind of gotten them involved, and the project falls out, we've reapplied again. So we've had several of those already. So I don't know, Rod or Gil, if you can talk about what the possibility of shifting programs.
And my hesitation on that would be, because if we're doing that, that means we're not renovating. I'd be very hesitant to go to one division and say, please move into this building that's not renovated and downgrade for what you currently have. Especially, the divisions are so different across campus. I know language arts was one of the ones that were brought up. Unfortunately, the building right behind me is language arts is going in, so that wouldn't be a possibility. But I think, especially at our campus, when we're landlocked and space is a premium, I would think it's really hard to move divisions or swapping buildings from division to division.
If I could just,
what I heard, if I understood what Trustee Lopez was saying, was not don't renovate, but you may not have to renovate as much if you're not having to, do the very infrastructure intensive renovation that a business in CIS department would need. You may be able to renovate appropriately for some other programs.
Yeah, the only issue with that is that we've already, for the most part, outside of the seismic, we've already done the entire design with the division. So we would have to start from scratch to redesign the entire building again.
It has been DSA approved. We have contacted DSA, and we can separate the two projects with minimal interruptions. So if we were to kind of start all over again, my recommendation would probably don't even do the project, because we'd have to start all over. Everything's kind of in sequence that we're trying to move forward. And so we got a lot of stuff on the table going on right now.
Gil Contreras.
yeah, thank you, Dr. Dunshee. I was just going to contribute. I think Interim Chancellor Williams took part of my comment, and that is it's very important part of the sequencing. Like, if we are to pivot from the Educational and Facilities Master Plan, that would require a longer campus conversation. So we'd have to go back through shared governance, invite the teams into the conversation across the divisions, identify other spaces to move those instructional programs. That would be a lengthy conversation that would potentially push back our timelines and sequencing. And just because it's first on the list doesn't necessarily mean it is the highest campus priority. Because we are landlocked, we have to do certain sequences of buildings in order to get to some of the areas that have been identified, as Dr. Dunshee pointed out earlier, the Welcome Center, associated students, instructional programs. There are other areas that may be higher on the priority list. It's just the sequencing of buildings have to happen first. So there is some urgency around some of these decisions because there are sequencings involved. And as Interim Chancellor Williams said, I just wanted to contribute those comments.
All right. I think we've had a pretty thorough discussion. I don't see any additional hands raised. Are we ready for a vote? Alba?
Trustee Bent,
Aye.
Trustee Blount,
Aye.
Trustee Brown,
Aye.
Trustee Dunphy,
Yes.
Trustee Lopez,
Aye.
Trustee Rodarte,
Yes.
Trustee Rosales,
Aye.
Student Trustee LaCourte,
Yes.
Student Trustee Pandian.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion carries. So now we'll go to item 3D. This is a recommendation that the board authorize an increase estimated project construction cost from 43.261 million to 84 million. This involves the music drama complex at Fullerton College. The increase in the estimated cost is due to the escalation of rates within the construction industry and an increase to accommodate code required restrooms and theater access. Do I have a motion and then we can begin discussion?
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Rosales. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Trustee Rodarte. Okay, so now we'll entertain any questions.
Just one question. How much additional design occurred between the initial submittal and what, resulted in the updated cost? Was there more design that was done, or was it just a more detailed cost estimate or something else?
Oh, Trustee Brown, we started with just the concept when we actually went out for this in terms of hiring the architect. We had an FPP that essentially kind of talks about a concept and what programming we are going to do. So we had no designs other than concepts that were approved through the FPP process. And that was kind of what started with the architect in order to start the preliminary plans and schematic designs, in order to kind of take the concept and actually put it into something that resembles a drawing, kind of so we can see what it looked like. You want to add on to that, Rod?
No, I think you covered it. So yeah, so from that scope, once the architect was on board, they began the schematic design process where they started validating all the programming and basically started shaping what the design would be based on our programming and based on all the ADA upgrades that needed to happen. This is a replacement project, so we were basically restricted to the exact same square footage of the actual buildings we currently have and are planning to demolish. The slight change was due to some of the code of ADA, but yeah, from the concept of FPP through schematic design and then after design development is where a lot of the actual design begins to happen. Before then, as Interim Chancellor Williams said, is basically a concept.
So was the cost of the FPP of was it 43 million or 261,000? Was that basically X number of square feet times Y dollars per square foot? Or how much design had been done to get to that number?
Correct. There was no design done during the FPP. There is an architect that is brought in during the FPP process only to validate, the square footage. Does it fit in the area we want to place this building in? But there's no actual design to a building.
So Jeff, in the presentation, you saw the 593 times the number of square feet that we were giving up. That's essentially how they come up with the cost. That's how the process works for state funding.
Are there any other questions? Trustee Bent?
I just have a comment. I think based on the huge inflation of scope for this project of 41 million extra dollars or or 40 million extra dollars. I know that we have a risk of forfeiting $41 million if we abandon this project. So I would prefer not to do that. I think I'd vote in favor of continuing this project. I believe it'll come back before us, correct me if I'm wrong, for the construction phase once it goes out to bid. So my goal would be to keep it on track and to do the schematic design and to keep paying for this project and deciding officially on it later, because to me, it going up by $40+ million to be a $119 million project is way too much. And I know that, you know, construction costs go up all the time, but this is a unprecedented time, I believe. So I'm hoping it goes back down, so I feel more comfortable to approve it in the future. I would not approve it today. If I had to make the decision based on that kind of increase, there's no way I would just hold off. But I think we are at risk of losing our funding from the state, and I don't want to do that. So I'd like to keep it on track for now. And so for that reason, I'll be voting to approve the recommendation right now.
So just to comment on from that direction, from January 21 to September 21, we actually saw actually through August, we actually saw about a 14.5% increase in escalation in terms of the estimated cost. We did see a slight decline in September of about, I think it was 1.5%, if I remember correctly. We're hoping that trend continues. We've seen this in the past where we have seen major escalations at some point, and then we've seen it kind of go the other direction as well. And so I'm very supportive of what Trustee Bent talked about. Is we've got probably a year and a half before we're ready to get this thing out on the street. We'll know a lot more, but the investment that we do need to make is to continue with the preliminary or the working drawing phase of the project. Hopefully that some of those numbers could potentially come down. The opposite could happen as well. It could go the other direction as well. So we're kind of at the mercy of the market. And at this point, we have the $41 million has been approved, and we have the preliminary plans approved. We do have to get the working drawings and get those submitted and get those approved as the next phase through the Chancellor's office.
Thank you. Trustee Rodarte?
It's also a comment that I'd like to make. I think it goes back to Dr. Contreras' comment of the importance of sequence. And I know with the facilities master plan, there was that welcome center and creating that uniform space or central location, I would say more. And I think in order for that to happen, music and drama needs to be placed in a different location. So although I'm not too fond of the increase in costs, I think just for the purpose of getting other projects moving forward, we have to move along with this one.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I'm not seeing any hands. Are we ready for a vote? Alba, you do the vote.
Trustee Bent?
Aye.
Trustee Blunt?
Aye.
Trustee Brown?
Aye.
Trustee Denshy?
Yes.
Trustee Lopez?
Aye.
Trustee Rodarte?
Yes.
Trustee Rosales?
Aye.
Student Trustee LaCourte?
Yes.
And Student Trustee Pandian?
Yes.
So motion carries. Thank you, Fred. And 3E. This one is authorization to request to amend the agreement with the Pfeiffer Partners. These are the architects. This is an increase of $1.4 million for reimbursables, again, for the music drama complex. Can we get a motion in a second? Thanks, Trustee Bent, and then we can discuss it. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Trustee Rodarte. So now we can get to the questions.
Just a correction, Barbara, you had mentioned, I think $1.4 million is actually almost a $4 million increase. or excuse me, $2 million. It's a $2 million increase. So it's just a little bit more
Okay.
than what you had mentioned. And now that you've approved 3D, we previously brought to the board back in January just to do the preliminary design portion of the project. As we move it forward for the recommendation, we do need to contract for the remaining phases of this project. And so most of the work is going to be done on the working drawings section of this. And I know there was a number of questions that were submitted, and we tried to answer those in the information that went out to the board and to the resource table. So with that, just kind of try to answer questions.
So, and I'll just also say that as the board president, I always sit down with the chancellor and go over the agenda, and that I really appreciate Fred's time. We spent about an hour on these 3 items for the most part. And initially I was a little reluctant for this particular item, but I asked him to kind of think it through, and he did. And the reason I was concerned was it seemed that we were increasing the architectural fees, and it seemed that the architects were asking for an additional increase in fees due to the increase in the overall cost of the building. And I think there were questions that said, well, the additional information said, well, the drawings have nothing to do with steel costs or stucco or anything like that. But at this point, if we are agreeing to move forward with this building, which we just voted to do, that, can we get another architect at a lower fee than this? And what would happen if we pushed out the timeline and things like that? So again, from the information that Fred shared with me yesterday and the additional information we got today, I am fairly certain that this is still the most effective architectural fees that we can get at this point for this project.
Trustee Dungy, the questions that were brought forward were very good questions, and it's ones that we have talked about when this whole item was proceeding through. That's why we did renegotiate the fee from essentially an 8% fee to a 7% fee to try to back out the rate of inflation, because they shouldn't be awarded additional fees just because the cost of materials go up. So that was well on our minds when we were having the discussions and we negotiated the rates. We learned, one of the things we did learn from our previous bond program, in that particular case, we had a number of construction contracts besides the architect that were based upon the total cost of construction, and that's how different contractors were paid or vendors were paid. Most of all of those have been eliminated, and we've gone to hourly rates just because of this reason. But the industry and our practice has been to pay the architects based upon the construction cost, agreed upon construction cost percentage.
Thanks. Are there any additional questions?
And I just wanted to mention also, and then in the contract and also the previous board agenda that was approved, it is a one-time adjustment. So if there is any increases, that will have no bear on the architect fees.
I have a quick question. Can you remind me how many other projects has this company, what other projects have they worked on for our district?
This is the first one that we've used this company for, that I'm aware of.
And Fred's been here a long time.
I've got a comment. The problem with this is the difference between budgeting and contracting. Professionals, whether they're architects or engineers or somebody else, are selling their time. They're not building cars. They're not selling lawnmowers. All they have to offer is their time, and they should be paid for their work product. And as Fred said, the cost of doing a drawing has nothing to do with the cost of materials of that drawing. is depicting. It's fine that the state process looks at the budget for a project as a percentage of the construction cost. And it's fine that, that's the way that the industry would like to have actual contracts done, because that's almost a blank check. That doesn't mean that our actual contracts for professionals need to follow that process. So as Fred said, our direction has been to eliminate, to a large extent, the actual contracts based on percent of construction cost and pay people for the actual work products. That's what should be done. In this case, we are dealing with a process and a contract that has already been started that is based on percent of construction cost. So that's what we have to do. But in the future, that is not the way that we should be actually entering into contracts with professionals for work products. They should be being paid, fairly and reasonably for the actual costs and hours that they spend on a project. And that eliminates the whole question about they have no incentive to do anything to reduce the cost of construction if they're going to get paid a percentage of that. So in this case, I'm okay, with going ahead with the cost increase. But in the future, whether it's architects or engineers or somebody else, even if the budgeting process requires that we set aside for the budget a certain amount based on the construction cost, that is not the way that we should be entering into the actual contracts with the people.
Something to consider. Thank you, Trustee Brown. Any other questions? Okay, let's go to a vote.
Trustee Bent,
Aye.
Trustee Blount,
Aye.
Trustee Brown,
Aye.
Dunshee,
Yes.
Trustee Lopez,
Aye.
Trustee Rodarte,
Yes.
Trustee Rosales,
Aye.
Student Trustee Laporte,
Yes.
and Student Trustee Pandian.
Yes.
No motion carries. Thank you, Fred and Rodrigo. It's a little painful to hear all these increases, but we will move ahead because we do have a master plan. And we want to kind of honor it as best we can. So appreciate your effort on this, even though it was a hard sell. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Item 3F, or I'm sorry, 4F. This was pulled by Trustee Lopez. Do I have a motion and a second so we can discuss it?
So
So
moved.
moved.
I have no idea who did that.
I'll
Trustee
second.
Rosales and Trustee Blount.
Okay, all right. All right.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch it.
Trustee Rosales made the motion. Trustee Blount seconded.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Trustee Lopez, you have some questions?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Just a point of clarification. So as I understand it, this is just needed to accommodate the calculation of the retirement benefit for Dr. Marshall. But the way it's presented, it says effective July 1, 2019, and there's no end date to it, as if this would be the schedule going forward. And this is the schedule that would apply to a new chancellor. So I just wanted to get clarification on that point, because I don't think the salary for the new chancellor is something that we have discussed yet, and I think it's something that would have to be negotiated. So this is, I just want to make sure that this is intended only to apply to Dr. Marshall's service. Is that correct?
Irma, I see your hand.
Yes, thank you. So yes, Ed, this only applies to Dr. Marshall. This had to do with her retirement. CalPERS is very picky about some of these items. You know, we made it very clear that her contract was already published on the website, and it had all the information from her contract. And that back in 2018, you all approved her contract with those salary increases. So between payroll and I, we were going back and forth for that same reason. I really didn't want to have to do this because I didn't want somebody thinking what you just thought, that this applies to the new chancellor. And the answer is no to that. This is specifically for Dr. Marshall. I wanted to put on here Chancellor Marshall, but they were very picky and they didn't let me do that. And so, yes, you're correct. This only applies to Dr. Marshall and it's for her retirement benefits so she can get paid. And obviously you will have discussion in closed session about the new salary for the new chancellor. So once that is done, then we could publish. We haven't had to do this in the past. The former chancellors have all been CalSTRS members, and this is a CalPERS issue only.
Well, I wonder, would there be a downside to saying effective July 1, 2019 to September 3, 2021?
Okay, so they were very picky about that as well. They needed me to leave the effective date July 1, 19. That was her last salary increase of that 322,399. They're just very, very picky in what they need on this. So I could tell you this is just for Dr. Marshall so she could get her pension and not have any issues on a technicality. That's all this is.
Yeah, I just don't see what the problem would be with an end date.
I already sent this to CalPERS, so they could look at it and they've approved it as is. But obviously, they still want me to have you approve it. And Cashew has her hand up.
Cashew?
Thank you. I did speak to our payroll manager about the requirements from CalPERS. Fred, as the interim chancellor, is also being paid off the chancellor's salary. And so the end date would have to come at a later time when we can terminate the schedule. So CalPERS is requiring that we continue it while someone who's on PERS, and Fred is on PERS as well, is also being paid off of that. It's why there are 2 steps on the schedule as well.
Once we have our new chancellor and whatever salary you would reach with this new chancellor, we can publish a new schedule with the effective date of the new chancellor, and then we're done.
Any further questions? You know, I'd like to point out that Dr. Marshall never asked for an increase in the past 2 years, and we never had to deal with any type of increase. Every other employee group was given an increase in the past 2 years. She never asked for another increase. So this is just, again, to remind everyone that this is really just for her retirement. She isn't getting paid at the moment. No retirement, so.
No, everyone understands that. The question is, should we publish a salary schedule that is open-ended and appears to apply to a new chancellor? But with the clarification that's been provided, I have no objection to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ed. Appreciate that.
Okay, any other questions? If not, let's go for a vote. Alba?
Trustee Bent?
Aye.
Trustee Blunt?
Aye.
Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Dungy?
Yes.
Trustee Lopez?
Aye.
Trustee Rodarte?
Yes.
And Trustee Rosales?
Aye.
Motion carries. Now we'll move to item 5A. This is a recommendation that the board adopts a resolution pursuant to AB 361. So could I have a motion in a second and then we can discuss it?
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Rodarte, seconded.
Second.
Second by Trustee Brown. Okay, any questions? I don't see any hands. Are we ready to go to a vote? Trustee LaCourte has her hand raised.
Sorry, just making a comment on this one. Like I know in our board policy 1001 district mission, under the district mission, vision, and values statements, under values, shared beliefs, 3.7, inclusiveness. We welcome and respect the diverse backgrounds and beliefs of our students, faculty, staff, and the many communities we serve. What made me think about this It's disappointing that the executive order was written the way it was, which in essence isn't inclusive. This takes away the opportunity for folks to participate in having their voices heard. Students who are taking night classes would be excluded in being able to put in a public comment. Folks who don't have the luxury to take time off to make a call will not have a voice. And I think, that how the California community colleges are pushing for DEIA, this is definitely going in the wrong direction. However, I'm wondering if there's a possibility of a hybrid model that would still be able to follow the state's new requirement where folks are allowed to submit public comments ahead of time and also allow for live comments. I think that the inequities was clearly shown when the pandemic hit. And I think that going backwards to the binary way of thinking that all or nothing doesn't help. I would like to think that since we're in unprecedented times, that we can find solutions to be more inclusive and equitable. I would like for the board to maybe rethink of other possible solutions that is inclusive so that people's voices can be heard all while following the new state requirements.
So Trustee LaCourte, do you have a specific amendment that you'd like to make or something?
I would just like to know if there's like a way that maybe we reconsider like allowing it to still have that hybrid solution of allowing folks to make their public comments and submit it ahead of our meetings in writing.
So just to clarify, right now, we don't really have hybrid. We have only submitting them before the meeting, and they have to be submitted before, I believe it's 4 o'clock. That was not the hybrid. It was only that way that we didn't take any public comments from, real time. So what we're changing is that now we will only allow it to be real time. So it's still not a hybrid model, but it's a different model.
I think that's kind of like what I'm suggesting is, maybe recommending it to be a hybrid. Like I know that, like if certain classes, like let's say that I end up taking a night class, I won't be able to take the time out of my class to be able to make a comment if I wanted to. Let's say that I'm no longer the trustee and I'm not here. I'm not able to make a comment if I'm not able to have that ability to do it.
Well, let me just say, there's always a possibility if somebody was really wanting to make a comment that they didn't have to physically be there as long as they got somebody else to make that comment.
But what if they don't have anybody else is what I'm saying, because not everybody has that. I'm by myself. If I'm not able to do it, who am I going to be able to count on? It's unfortunate, that sometimes that I can't ask my friends to do something for me because I can't trust that they're going to be able to do it for me because they might forget. So I'm just saying that in this situation, I would like to think that there would be another way. And I think that, with how, the school district and the schools and, the professors and the students all acclimated to the new normal, I think there should be a way for us to be able to find some other solution that's just not saying all or nothing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you have a specific amendment that you'd like to propose, and you can propose it, and then if somebody seconds it and it carries, then we can entertain that concept? What I'm hearing you say is that you'd like a hybrid. You'd like to allow both comments ahead of time as well as comments in person.
Yes.
Trustee Dungy, can you?
Sure.
I think Alba wants to make a comment.
Thanks. Alba?
Just 2 things. I'd like to point out that the model we're proposing going to is actually more inclusive than our traditional model, where folks would need to come in person. We have never taken written comments in the past, not to say that we can't ever, but this model that we would be going to temporarily before we go back to our previous model is technically more inclusive than our past practice. But the more pressing matter is that currently what we're doing, we have the option to solicit written comments exclusively. The new legislation completely disallows that. So if we would like to do written comments in advance, we cannot have an end time. And on its own merit, that doesn't sound as problematic, but in practicality, it's very problematic because the law requires us to accept written comments up until the public comment period closes. So, and with the meeting being open to the public, this Zoom portion of it would need to be open to the public, or accessible to the public, I should say. We're looking at a situation where the comments could continually come in, and we honestly do not have the manpower to constantly monitor an email account. It's Danielle and I are the team. We're looking at an outside agency to come in and help us facilitate this, but they would not be able to deal with that aspect of it. So it's really the problematic part is that we would need to have them up until that last possible minute available and taking them if we were to allow written comments.
Okay, so Trustee LaCourte, do you want to make an amendment after that?
Yeah, how does that work? Just saying, hey, if you'd like to amend, make an amendment of making it more inclusive by having a hybrid model, allowing comments to be provided along with like live calls in.
Okay, so you did hear Alba's concern that we would then have to hire some other people to do that.
Yeah, I understand that. But I think I'm also looking at it from the perspective of inclusion.
Okay. Does anyone wish to second that? Okay, so I'm not hearing a second. So your motion is not going to carry. All right. So with that said, are there any other questions on the general item?
No, I'll just say I appreciate the recommendation Trustee LaCourte made. I think that's a legitimate concern, and it's, you know, concern I think a lot of us share because there's city council meetings and K-12 school district meetings going on at the same time as our board meeting, and so we can't participate in those. We can't submit comments to those. To me, this is the right thing to do, to go back to our traditional way of doing things, which is more live public comments, and hopefully the public will participate during our meetings.
So I would encourage that because I understand Trustee LaCourte's concern, particularly for students with night classes. So I would encourage people that cannot be there at that time specific to try to find someone else to read the comments. Because we do like to hear the comments and the different opinions, particularly comments from students. We're not trying to squash any comments. We're just trying to facilitate a change in the law and facilitate it with the staff that we have. So, all right, let's go to a vote. Alba?
Bennett?
Aye.
Trustee Blount?
Aye.
Trustee Brown?
Aye.
Trustee Dungy?
Yes.
Trustee Lopez?
Aye.
Trustee Rodarte?
Yes.
Trustee Rosales?
Aye.
And Trustee LaCourte?
I'm all about inclusion, so I'm gonna have to say no.
And Student Trustee Pandian?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Item number 5B, are any future items anybody would like to ask for at this time?
I think Trustee Lopez was going to put something.
Trustee Lopez, did you want to ask about the project labor agreements?
Yeah, I appreciate Trustee Rodarte's thought. I'll come back to that. I want to think about it a little more, but yes, I do want to agendize something on that. But I'll notify the interim chancellor of that at a later time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, I would like to close this meeting now in the honor and memory of Michael Zahara, who worked extensively at Cypress College in the construction phases. And it's very sad to hear, and we certainly send our condolences to his family and his friends, and really hard to hear the news of the loss in COVID. We are going to adjourn to closed session. It is 7:39. So let's give us about 10, 15 minutes, come back at 7:55. And we will hear about section 54957.6, conference with labor negotiations. We also have a public employee discipline dismissal release and a public employee appointment. This is the chancellor and Fullerton College presidents. And we have one conference with legal counsel anticipated litigation. So thank